My name is Mia. I was born just 3 minutes after my twin sister, Chloe. But to our parents, Diane and Gregory Adams, those 3 minutes seemed like a lifetime. From as early as I can remember, I could feel that my world would always revolve around Chloe's overwhelming shadow. Our family lived in a peaceful small town in Vermont. My mother, Diane, was an insurance agent who always dressed impeccably, as if she were ready to go on TV. My father, Gregory, ran an appliance repair shop, constantly busy with tools and orders. On the outside, we looked like an average middle-class family. But if you spent enough time with us, you'd quickly realize who was truly the center of the universe: Chloe. The favoritism started subtly. When Chloe and I were 4, Mom took us to buy new shoes for kindergarten. Chloe got to pick a pair of pink suede shoes from the newest collection, while I was handed a pair of faded sneakers marked down by 70%. I still remember the look on Mom's face as she told the clerk, "These will do. She just needs something to wear." From toys to clothes, everything Chloe had was shiny, brand new, and expensive. I usually ended up with items left over in the clearance bins. On our 5th birthday, we had a small party at home. When it was time for gifts, Chloe received an American Girl doll complete with her own wardrobe. And me, I got a crumpled rag doll from the discount store. Guests clapped as Chloe hugged her gift. I just looked down quietly, hiding the lump in my throat. Every holiday felt like a scripted performance. Each Christmas, under the glowing tree, Chloe's gifts piled high like a mountain. I had just a few small boxes, wrapped in wrinkled old paper. Even the birthday cake decision was never shared. Every year, Mom asked Chloe what flavor she wanted, and that was it. One year, I mustered the courage to say, "Mom, I like chocolate cake too." She frowned slightly and replied shortly, "Chloe doesn't like chocolate, so we'll get vanilla." Answers like that, repeated over and over, slowly wore me down. And even the way they looked at us was different. When Chloe spoke, our parents would lean in, hanging on to her every word like it was gospel. When I spoke, their eyes would skim past me and land right back on Chloe, smiling proudly at whatever she had just said. The family photos lining our hallway couldn't hide the imbalance either. Chloe was always at the center, holding something bright and special. I stood off to the side, often half hidden behind someone or smiling stiffly. Once, at a parent-teacher conference, my teacher praised my writing skills and even suggested I join an advanced class. But instead of being thrilled, Mom just shrugged and said dismissively, "It's nice that Mia's doing okay, but Chloe is the pride of this family." Slowly, I learned to stay silent, not to ask, not to expect anything. But no matter how hard I tried, the hurt stayed buried inside, like a wound that refused to heal. By the time we were 6, Chloe's schedule was packed like a little star's. Monday was ballet, Tuesday piano lessons, Wednesday painting class, Thursday swimming, Friday acting lessons. Weekends were filled with performances and competitions. And me? Mom handed me a list of homework with a cold reminder. "Mia, you need to be more independent. Don't cause trouble." I spent silent afternoons in an empty house, the only sounds being the scratch of my pencil and the ticking clock. I sat alone at the dining table, diligently doing spelling drills, solving math problems, reading thick books. Meanwhile, Chloe came home with Mom, showing off her ballet medals, while Mom gushed to Dad over every small detail, as if it were a miracle. One time, I brought home a perfect score on a test, my heart bursting with hope. Mom barely glanced at it before setting it aside without a word. That same evening, Chloe proudly showed off a painting that won second prize at her art class. Dad jumped up to snap a picture, and Mom kissed Chloe's forehead, her eyes shining like she'd discovered treasure. I clutched my test paper and hid it under my pillow, letting my silent tears soak through. When I was 8, I started writing short stories. My English teacher praised my imagination and suggested I join the children's writing club at the local library. I brought the invitation home, excited, but Mom coldly said, "Chloe doesn't even have enough time for all her classes. You think you can just demand things?" She tossed the invitation into the trash right in front of me, then signed Chloe up for a new modern dance class. Some nights, I lay awake staring at the ceiling stars above my bed. Chloe had a whole sky full of glowing stars, while I had just a few, stuck on hastily with old glue. I told myself that maybe if I tried harder, did better, my parents would notice. But those hopes were slowly crushed. Everything came to a head one winter night. I woke up thirsty, tiptoed downstairs for water, and heard voices from the living room. The lights were still on. I crept closer and hid behind the wall. "Greg, do you think we made a mistake?" Mom's voice was heavy. "What do you mean?" Dad asked tiredly. I think we should have only had one child. Chloe is enough. She's smart, beautiful, has so much potential. And Mia," Mom sighed, "she just exists." "Yeah," Dad agreed after a pause. "Life would have been so much easier with just Chloe." I gripped the glass tightly, feeling winter's chill flood my chest. I turned and ran back to my room, not caring how loud my footsteps were. That night, I buried myself under the covers, biting my lip until it bled to keep from crying out loud. Every word Mom said cut deeper than the last, slicing away the last fragile pieces of hope I had. The next morning, I came down to breakfast, face cold as stone. Mom handed Chloe a brand new, bright red scarf. I got a pair of old knit gloves still smelling faintly of last year's peppermint. Chloe squealed with thanks. I gave a faint smile and tucked the gloves into my coat pocket, along with all the nameless hurt. From that day on, I stopped asking. I stopped hoping to join the classes Chloe got to attend. I stopped wishing my parents would see me. Instead, I buried myself in my studies. The only way I knew to prove that I deserved to exist, even if, in their eyes, I was just an unnecessary shadow next to a dazzling star. I started keeping a journal. Every night I wrote down my feelings, my suffocated dreams, the words I never dared to speak aloud. I didn't know if those pages could save me from the loneliness, but at least they kept my heart from turning to stone. After that night, I stopped looking to my parents with hopeful eyes. The yearning to be loved, acknowledged, and treated fairly, I wrapped it all up tightly and buried it deep. Like a letter that would never be sent. I poured everything into school. While other kids spent afternoons at sports or hanging out, I camped out in the school library, surrounded by books. I drilled advanced math problems, dissected tough reading passages, pored over every detail in history textbooks. I didn't study for praise. I studied to prove that even if they never saw me, I could still shine on my own. My English teacher, Miss Simmons, was the first to notice the change. One day, after a reading comprehension test, she called me over. "Mia, have you thought about entering the state essay competition? Your test was outstanding." I nodded, a quiet joy swelling in my chest. Not because someone demanded it, not to make anyone proud, but because for the first time I felt like I was on the right path. Meanwhile, Chloe's discomfort was growing obvious. Every time a teacher praised me in class, she would slam her hand on the desk or sigh loudly. Once, after Miss Simmons praised my essay during a school assembly, Chloe slammed her book down so hard the whole room turned to stare. At home, I overheard her grumbling to Mom. "Those teachers are obsessed with Mia. I do well too, but they only talk about her." Mom set her tea down and replied dully, "Chloe, don't take it to heart. People tend to pity the less fortunate ones." That comment, instead of hurting me, made me quietly laugh. I didn't need pity. I had real ability, and day by day I was proving it. My grades skyrocketed, my name regularly appeared on the school's honor roll, and I was even invited to serve as a teaching assistant in several subjects. I joined the debate club, the academic team, and won a county-level science competition. Each time awards were announced, I stood proudly on stage under the bright lights, while Chloe sat in the audience, her face darkened. Chloe grew more impatient and irritable. She started spreading complaints around school, claiming teachers were biased toward me, that the administration was unfair to her. One day, I overheard her telling a group of friends that I was nothing special, just a parrot who was lucky to have teachers on her side. But I didn't respond. I let the numbers speak for me. My grades, my awards, the scholarship interview invitations from top universities. One evening, as I sat at my desk under the soft glow of my lamp, filling out nearly completed scholarship applications, I overheard Mom and Dad talking in the living room. "I think Chloe's starting to feel the pressure," Mom whispered. "She's never had to compete within her own family." "Mia's just overcompensating," Dad replied. "Chloe is still the real hope." I bit down on my pen, not sure whether to laugh or cry. No matter how well I did, in their eyes, I would always be a desperate attempt to catch up to a star they had crowned themselves. But this time, I didn't feel sadness. Instead of tears, a quiet strength rose inside me. I wouldn't compete for their love. I would step out of that vicious cycle and rise on my own. The next day, I applied for the school's special advanced program, a program Chloe didn't even qualify for. When I held the acceptance letter in my hand, I knew I had officially started my own journey. A journey that didn't need anyone's nod or approval, but my own. One sweltering Sunday afternoon, while cleaning the bookshelf in the living room, I stumbled upon an old album wedged deep in the bottom shelf. The leather cover was faded and peeling, and the pages inside had yellowed with time. I opened it, brushing my fingers over the old photos. Unfamiliar faces, friendly smiles hiding quiet mysteries. One photo stopped me cold. It was my mother, young and simple, standing between an elderly couple with kind faces. Underneath, in shaky handwriting, someone had written, "Diane with Mom and Dad, 1992. Flipping through more pages, I found a crumpled letter, still carrying a faint, musty smell, with scrawled words, "Dear daughter, we hope to see you and the children again." My heart pounded in my chest. Growing up, I had never heard Mom mention her parents. When I asked, she only said, "They're not part of our lives anymore." I'd once naively believed maybe they had passed away, but now everything in front of me told a different story. That night, while Mom and Chloe were busy watching their favorite TV show, I snuck into Mom's office. In the bottom drawer beneath piles of old bills and thick notebooks, I found a black address book. Amid dozens of crossed-out names, one entry was circled in red. "Do not contact. William and June Carter." I quickly scribbled the address onto the corner of my scratch paper, my heart pounding with a strange excitement. I didn't know what I would find there, but I knew I had to find out the truth. The next afternoon, I lied to Mom, saying I had a study group at school. Instead of heading home, I took bus 7, winding through old streets until I reached a poor neighborhood on the town's edge. House number 42 matched the address. A small white house with a faded green picket fence and a garden full of wild daisies. I walked up to the door, my hand trembling as I knocked. The door opened to reveal an elderly woman with neatly pinned silver hair, staring at me in shock. Behind her stood a thin, elderly man, leaning on the doorframe. "Who are you?" the woman asked, her voice trembling. I swallowed hard and forced my voice to stay steady. "I'm Mia Adams, Diane's daughter." They froze as if struck by lightning. The woman covered her mouth with her hand, tears glistening in her eyes. The man stepped forward and took my hand, his own shaking. "Oh God. June, look, she looks just like Diane at her age," he choked out. They invited me inside. The small house was humble but incredibly warm. Family photos covered the walls, old porcelain dishes gleamed from careful polishing, and the smell of fresh apple pie filled the air, wrapping me in a world where love didn't have to be earned or bargained for. We sat on an old couch and talked for hours. They told me about my mother's childhood, about the hard times filled with laughter. When I asked why Mom had cut ties, June only shook her head. Sadness heavy in her eyes. "Your mother chose a different life," she said softly. She thought being poor was shameful. She wanted a life without us. William took my hand in his rough but warm grasp. But child, our love never faded. No matter what Diane thinks, you are always welcome here. I couldn't hold back my tears. For the first time in my life, I truly felt like I belonged somewhere. Before I left, June pressed a small bag of cookies into my hands and whispered, "Whenever you miss home, just come here. Our door is always open." I hugged the bag tightly, stepping out into the golden afternoon sun. A gentle breeze brushed my hair, as if reassuring me that no matter how many years of neglect I had endured, there would always be a place and people ready to welcome me simply for being myself. Graduation day arrived on a bright June morning. I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting my navy blue gown, feeling a bittersweet ache. Even though no one at home had asked or seemed to care, I promised myself that today would be mine. I had fought too hard to reach this moment. To the ceremony, when the principal announced my name as valedictorian, the auditorium erupted in applause. I stepped onto the stage, clutching my honors diploma, the spotlight blinding my tear-filled eyes. I scanned the crowd for my family. Mom sat in the front row, but instead of watching me, she was whispering with Chloe, both giggling as if the ceremony were nothing more than an interruption in their busy day. As I stepped down, hugging my diploma to my chest, I heard Mom shout, "Chloe! Chloe! Look up here!" Out of thousands, she chose the moment Chloe received her certificate of completion to wave and cheer, as if Chloe had just won a Nobel Prize. I gripped my purse tightly, swallowing the lump of disappointment rising in my throat. Watching friends receive warm hugs and congratulations from their families only made the emptiness inside me grow. Afterward, the family gathered on the school lawn for pictures. I stood stiffly at the side as Mom eagerly snapped photo after photo of Chloe holding her certificate. Meanwhile, my valedictorian diploma stayed clutched under my arm, unnoticed. That evening, at a half-hearted celebration dinner at home, Mom suddenly beamed with excitement, like she had been waiting all day for this moment. "Guess what?" she announced, rattling the silverware in her excitement. "We're going to Hawaii to celebrate!" My heart skipped a beat. Hope, foolish, naive hope, flickered inside me. "Just the three of us," Mom continued sweetly. "Dad, me, and Chloe." He froze. "And you, Mia," Mom said, turning to me with a hollow smile. "You'll stay here to watch the house. Plus, you have your cafe job, don't you?" Chloe burst out laughing, setting her glass down with a loud clink. "Don't worry, Mia. I'll send you tons of pictures. Blue ocean, white sand, 5-star restaurants. You'll feel like you're right there with us." Sat there, my chopsticks slipping from my hand onto my plate, my heart numb. "You understand, right?" Mom pressed, as if all she needed was my nod to enjoy her trip guilt-free. I swallowed hard and forced a smile. "Yes, I understand." That night, as they packed their brand-new luxury suitcases, I sat alone by the window, staring at the twinkling summer stars. I wondered what I had even hoped for. A thank you? A hug? A plane ticket? Those things had never been mine, and they never would be. The next morning, I leaned against the doorway as a taxi pulled up. Chloe, wearing oversized sunglasses and a designer jumpsuit, turned back to wave, her mocking smile clear. "You have a great time, Mia," she sang. "Don't let your little waitress job kill your dreams." The car door slammed shut and the taxi drove off, carrying their laughter and indifference away from me. I closed the door, slid down against the cold wall, and, for the first time in a long while, let myself cry. But the tears weren't just from being left behind. They washed away every foolish expectation I had ever placed on that family. When the tears dried, I stood up, wiped my face, and grabbed my phone. I dialed June's number. "Grandma," I said, my voice shaking but determined. "Can I come over today?" Her familiar, gentle voice answered immediately. Oh, of course, sweetheart. We're always waiting for you. I hung up, grabbed the bag I had packed the night before, locked the door behind me, and stepped into the world, leaving behind a house full of cold emptiness. A new chapter was waiting for me, and this time, I wasn't looking back. When I arrived at the little white house, William and June were already standing on the porch, their faces lit up as if they were welcoming a VIP. June pulled me into a warm hug, and William gently patted my back, a simple gesture that somehow healed years of silent wounds. Inside, the house was filled with the comforting smell of toasted bread and cinnamon. A small homemade banner hung on the wall. "Congratulations, sweet Mia." Just a simple line. But it made my heart nearly burst. We shared a lunch that June had prepared: grilled meat, potato salad, and the crispy apple pie she had promised to make just for me. Afterward, William stood up and picked up a small box wrapped in shimmering silver paper. "We have a special gift for you, Mia," he said, his eyes brimming with joy. I opened the box, my heart pounding in my chest. Inside wasn't a piece of jewelry or a book like I expected. It was a gleaming car key. I looked at them, feeling like I was dreaming. "We've thought about this for a long time," Grandma June said with a gentle smile. "You've worked so hard. You deserve it." I ran outside, where a brand new silver Lexus IS was parked, shining under the late afternoon sun. I stood there, hands covering my mouth, eyes filled with tears. In my whole life, I had never imagined receiving a gift just for me, let alone something so extravagant. How could you?" I stammered. "But Grandpa William chuckled, his kind smile deepening the lines at the corners of his eyes. "When your mother left, we invested our small savings into a few tech projects. Luckily, they did far better than we ever dreamed. But living simply is in our blood, so we barely spent anything. We saved it for what truly matters." I hugged them tightly, unable to say anything except let my silent tears fall on their shoulders. And it didn't stop there. As we sat back in the living room, Grandpa William pulled out a pale blue envelope. "Remember when you talked about applying to college?" he asked, handing it to me. With trembling hands, I opened it. Inside was a copy of an acceptance letter from Columbia University, with a full-ride scholarship for all 4 years. I was so overwhelmed I couldn't speak. Every quiet effort, every sleepless night studying, every lonely tear, it had all been worth it. Grandma June gently patted my hand, her voice warm as sunlight. "We believe in you, Mia. You don't have to work for anyone's approval anymore. You've always been enough." That night, I sat on their front porch, the car key nestled in my palm, watching the sunset paint the sky purple. A new chapter was unfolding in front of me, one where I was no longer a forgotten shadow trailing behind someone else's dreams. I had a real family, a place where love wasn't tied to achievements, image, or expectations. Just love. For being myself. When they came back from Hawaii, I was already sitting on the bench out front, an iced tea in hand, watching the afternoon sun cast a golden glow on the shiny Lexus parked in the driveway. I didn't rush inside. I wanted to witness the moment when their lies and self-satisfaction crashed into reality. As the taxi pulled up, Mom was the first to step out. Her hair perfectly curled under the summer sun, she squinted and shaded her eyes as if the bright light overwhelmed her. Then her gaze landed on the new car, and she froze like someone had punched the air out of her lungs. Chloe followed, dragging her Gucci suitcase across the concrete. She spotted the Lexus, stumbled a step, then spun around, mouth wide open. What is this?" Mom stammered, her eyes glued to the car. Dad, still wearing sunglasses, slowly pulled them off, his eyes bulging in disbelief. I stood up, casually twirling the car key between my fingers like it was second nature. "Welcome home," I said calmly. "Oh, by the way, this is my graduation gift from my grandparents." The air froze. For a moment, my parents, who had never cared enough to even ask about my grandparents, now openly showed their greedy yearning. "They're still alive?" Mom croaked. "Not only alive," I smiled, "but doing better than you ever imagined." Chloe looked around wildly, as if hoping the scene would vanish, but the Lexus gleamed stubbornly under the afternoon sun. Mom recovered first. She grabbed Chloe's hand, her smile suddenly sugary sweet. "Mia, you know, Chloe's about to start college. She really needs a good car. This one suits her perfectly." I raised an eyebrow. "Are you saying I should give my car to Chloe?" "Exactly," Dad chimed in, his tone turning sharp. "You work at a coffee shop. You don't need a luxury car." "Chloe needs it for school, internships, building her future." Chloe stood there, her greedy gaze glued to the Lexus as if it already belonged to her. I laughed, a full, clear laugh that echoed through the still afternoon. "It's hilarious," I said, walking toward the car. "How you abandoned me, made me fend for myself, and now, seeing me with something, you shamelessly try to snatch it away." Dad stepped forward, his face red with anger. "If you refuse to share, then don't expect to stay in this house." "Oh, I don't plan to," I replied, popping open the car trunk to reveal neatly packed suitcases. Mom's mouth dropped open. Chloe muttered incoherently. "I've been ready for this for a long time," I said firmly. "This house, this place that never made me feel like I belonged, I don't need it anymore." I shut the trunk, grabbed the keys, and opened the car door. "And one more thing," I added, my smile razor sharp. "I got accepted into Columbia University. Full scholarship." That hit like a dagger to their hollow pride. Mom staggered, clutching the taxi door to stay upright. Chloe clutched her purse strap, her face twisting in disbelief. "Let them away." I slid into the driver's seat, closed the door, and lowered the window. "Have a wonderful summer," I said, my voice cool and soft, "while I start my new life." I pressed the gas, and the Lexus glided away, leaving behind the shocked, regretful faces of people who had once treated me like an invisible shadow. I spent that summer living with William and June in their little white house with wild daisies blooming all around. Each morning, I woke to the sound of Grandpa reading the paper in the living room and Grandma bustling in the kitchen making breakfast. My life became strangely peaceful, as if all those years of hurt were just a distant dream. They didn't ask about my parents, nor did they force me to retell the past. They simply made it clear that here I had a place, without fighting, without proving myself. For the first time, I was loved unconditionally. As the fall semester at Columbia approached, they surprised me with one more gift: a small, cozy apartment about 10 minutes from campus. It was on the third floor of a quiet building with gleaming wood floors, wide windows that caught the sunlight, and a little balcony, perfect for growing flowers or reading in the afternoons. "You need a space of your own to start this new chapter," Grandpa said as he handed me the keys. I hugged them tightly, my tears unhidden. I finally had a true home, not because of blood ties, but because of love. The days that followed were filled with preparations. I got a part-time job at a nearby coffee shop to earn some extra money and settle into college life. The job was busy, but I loved the lively chatter, the rush of orders, the stories of young people brimming with energy. I made friends in class. People who knew nothing of my past and only saw me as who I was, a determined 18-year-old full of dreams. There was Emma, a sociology major who laughed like wind chimes, and Daniel, an economics major who stayed after class to tackle tough essays. They didn't pry about my family or poke into the gaps of my story, and I was grateful for that. My life overflowed with new experiences, late-night study sessions, heated classroom debates, busy shifts at the cafe. I began to taste true freedom. Freedom from judgment, comparison, and suffocating expectations. But then, One late September afternoon, while reading on my balcony, my phone rang. On the screen flashed a name I thought I'd left behind. Mom. I let it ring until it stopped, then coldly hit decline. Messages flooded in afterward. Mia, I miss you. Family is always family. You can't stay mad forever. Your grandparents aren't young anymore. You should think about the future. I didn't respond. Deep down, I knew the real reason behind those sweet words. News of the new car, the apartment, even my full scholarship must have reached them. The same people who once looked down on my grandparents were now scrambling to rebuild family ties. Soon after, while I was making coffee at work, I saw Mom and Dad standing hesitantly outside the cafe window. Chloe stood beside them, arms crossed, her face cold as ice. I turned away and kept serving customers as if I hadn't seen them at all. That night, I blocked their numbers, social media accounts, and emails. I had closed that chapter, and there was no reason to reopen it for people who only cared when there was something to gain. Later, I sat alone on my balcony, watching the warm yellow lights stretching across the street. I hugged a small pillow to my chest, breathing in the peace that now filled every corner of my life. Life at Columbia flew by faster than I ever expected. My days were packed with fascinating lectures, lively discussions, and late-night study groups. I worked weekends at the cafe, saving up for small dreams of my own. My little apartment with its sunlit balcony became my safe corner to study, read, and savor quiet evenings free of fear or loneliness. I started allowing myself to dream bigger. No longer confined by the need for others' approval, I defined my own worth. I took the toughest classes, worked under top professors, and even began planning a community project to help struggling students. One late afternoon in the library, Daniel walked over carrying 2 cups of coffee. "You look like you're about to save the world," he teased, setting a cup in front of me. I laughed. Truly laughed. Feeling, for the first time, free to share my dreams without fear of being mocked or belittled. We grew close. Unlike the transactional relationships I had witnessed growing up, what Daniel and I built was rooted in mutual respect. He listened to my stories with quiet patience, no pity, no judgment, just simply listening. One autumn evening, as we sat together on the balcony of my apartment, Daniel looked at me intently and said, "Mia, you know something. You're stronger than anyone I've ever met." I turned toward him, the city lights reflecting in his eyes, feeling my heart, for the first time in years, no longer weighed down. "I used to think I needed recognition to exist," I said softly. "But now I understand. I just need to be myself." Daniel took my hand, his warm grasp holding mine in a silence full of meaning. When winter came, I received an internship offer from a major nonprofit organization that supports underprivileged students. It was the dream I had once clung to while sitting curled up by the window of my old house, imagining a world where kindness and fairness truly existed. I called my grandparents to tell them the news. Over the phone, June's voice broke with pride. "My sweet girl did it," she whispered, not to please anyone else, but because her own heart led the way. During the year-end holidays, I visited them. We decorated the Christmas tree together, baked gingerbread cookies, and shared old stories. There were no extravagant parties, no expensive gifts, just genuine laughter and long, warm hugs. One afternoon, while helping Grandma June sort through old photos, I found an old family picture, the one where I had always been tucked away in the shadows. I held the photo, smiled, and gently placed it back in the box. "I don't need them anymore," I said firmly. "I have a real family now." Grandma June squeezed my hand, tears shimmering in her aging eyes. "A real family," she whispered, "is where you are loved for exactly who you are, without any conditions." When spring arrived, I stood before the mirror, wearing my honor program graduation robe from Columbia. Staring at the young woman in the reflection, I saw someone entirely new. Not the little girl who once looked up in desperate hope, but a young woman full of confidence, strength, and freedom. Outside the window, fresh buds began to sprout, signaling a new beginning. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but this time, I wasn't afraid. With love, respect, and endless opportunities waiting, I moved forward, steady, proud, and full of hope. From a little girl once considered an afterthought in her own family, Mia rose through sheer determination and resilience. She no longer chased approval from those who never truly loved her, but instead found her worth through knowledge, genuine love, and the freedom to choose her own life. Mia's journey reminds us that sometimes family isn't where we are born, it's where we are truly loved, and it's we ourselves who write our destiny. What do you think about Mia's journey and the choices she made? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to follow the channel for more touching and inspiring family stories in the upcoming videos.